cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Lionel, welcome back.
Yes.
My next question is in reference to some reports that you prepared regarding the iPhones of Mr. Voss and Mr. Frame. You remember referencing those earlier, Mr. Lionel?
I do.
So you didn't analyze any of the information that was contained in those iPhone reports, correct?
There were no analysis that I have since looked at the reports, yes.
Okay. You mentioned a personal hard drive belonging to Mr. Paul Schumann. You remember that? You mentioned that there was some subsequent discovery and deposition, and that you had learned about a personal hard drive belonging to Mr. Paul Schumann, right?
The Seagate hard drive.
Seagate hard drive, right? That's what you mentioned. I tried to write it down incorrectly.
Seagate, not a Seagate, or whatever.
Right. The reporter may have not caught the correct spelling, but in any event. Now, you would agree with me that Seagate hard drive is not referenced anywhere in your report as a device that was connected to a Sargent computer, right?
That's correct.
So, that brings me to my last line of questioning, Mr. Lionel. You would agree with me that you don't have any basis to conclude that any of the former Sargent employees referenced in your report took any of the missing USB devices, correct?
I think since my deposition and since the issuance of the expert report, I would like to say that yes, whoever was responsible and the custodian got into a Sargent laptop and a USB device, and then a month or so later, the same person's MJE laptop was on, and the same USB device was plugged into it.
Right. But let me ask you this then. Other than those few devices that are referenced in our expert's report, you don't have any basis to conclude that the missing devices were taken by the former Sargent employees, right?
Let's not put all devices together. If you want to say devices, I identified 46 devices. 6 of those were identified by you expert as being plugged into MJ's. So with those 6, I would like to say yes, it was the same user computer on both MJ and Sargent. So yeah, it probably was the same person.
Right, aside
from that, and then plus the Paul Schumann, which is a 37, so that's, we're saying there was 46 devices, now there's 47 because of Paul Schumann, which I did not put in the report, but we know was plugged into the Sargent laptop by her permission, and plugged into the Sargent over the MJ laptop by the expert's report.
Okay.
So that's 7. So the remaining 4. Okay, yes, I do not know who has physical possession of those remaining 40 USB devices.
Well, when you say that you know, based on Mr. Schumann's testimony that was plugged in, it's not referenced in your report, is it?
No, it's not. There's an explanation for that, and I think I went through that already, where it's an external device, and I can only get the first data was plugged in and the last data was plugged in. I was not comfortable with the last data was plugged in because of the way the registry and the key value displayed. It displayed a date along with other USB devices in the same date. I wasn't comfortable with providing that, so that's why I was not put in. But I know it was plugged in not because of this testimony.
But that's not anywhere in your report, right?
No, it was after weather just a couple of weeks ago, I believe.
Your level of discomfort only arose just recently?
No, the level of discomfort. discomfort of what I was gathering information for the report.
But you decided not to put it in the report.
That's correct. I decided not to put it in because I wasn't comfortable with it.
Now, with respect to those USB devices that are referenced in our experts report, you don't know if any of those devices are personal devices or Sargent devices, right?
Object to the form. I'm not sure what personal means in this context.
Okay, well, if I told you that personal means with respect to a USB device, a flash drive or a thumb drive that an individual went out and bought at a store is their personal property, you don't know if any of those 6 devices are personal property of these individuals or they're Sargent property. You don't know that, do you?
Okay, the answer question?
Yes, no, it is.
Thank you. You are correct. I do not know what those 6 devices are if they were provided by Sargent or NPA or non-personal devices.
And you don't have any opinions about the contents of those devices, do you?
Well,
You haven't put them in your report, do you? Have you?
so I just was made aware of after my report.
You haven't made any findings or disclosed any opinions about the contents of those devices, have you?
Well, your expert knows the contents of 2 devices and the other 5
Well, Mike will testify about that. He's disclosed his opinion. But my question to you is, you don't have any opinions or findings about the contents of those devices, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Lino, you would also agree with me that you don't have any basis to conclude that any of the so-called missing USB devices, aside from the devices referenced in our experts' report, are being used by the former Sargent employees, right?
Or being used on the Sargent and the MJ laptops, I think we can disqualify that because we actually looked at that. But I don't think I could answer that because I have no information on research or non-research.
You have no information, one or the other, about whether those missing devices are being used by the former Sargent employees.
They're not, that's correct.
Right. So, you would agree with me that it would not be reasonable for someone to rely solely on your analysis and your report to conclude that the former Sargent employees stole those missing devices, right?
So I don't think my report has anything to do with stealing missing devices. Nothing. I think the report stands as it is. We've already gone through the report and the inferences and conclusions and the judge can see the findings that I came up with. But the theory of USB devices wasn't even part of this.
Fair enough. Mr. Lino, this question isn't just limited to the missing USB devices. This is more broadly speaking. You don't have any basis to conclude that any proprietary Sargent information is being used by any of the former Sargent employees, correct?
The contents of those files that are identified in the report, and also I believe that Mr. Sherman indicates that there was his contact list at home computer. So, yes, I think that some of these items are being used.
So based on that, you're assuming that Mr. Schuman's contact list is Sargent's proprietary information? Is that your assumption?
I'm not going to make an assumption, but I think that someone else would have to decide that the contact list, which may or may not include business contacts, would be proprietary. I can't make that decision, but I think that yes, there are items removed from Sargent that are being removed by these employees. Just based on the depositions and we talked about to this point.
And you're referring to information other than what's reflected in our experts report? Putting that aside. Putting aside our experts report.
Right.
Because I'm asking you to. So putting aside that, is there anything, and putting aside what Mr. Schuman said at his deposition, he still had his chance to testify. So let's forget about Mr. Schuman. Let's forget about our expert report. You don't have any basis to conclude that any proprietary Sargent information is being used by any of the former Sargent employees, correct?
I object to that question, Your Honor, in the form of that question. He's saying that if you ignore all the evidence, please answer my question.
That's not what I said, Your Honor. And, Your Honor, let me do this. I would just like to impeach him.
Well, one thing is, he doesn't know what proprietary information is. I mean, he's clear on that, so.
Okay, fair enough. Then let's take out proprietary.
And I decided not to object to that line, Your Honor, just to move this along. So I'm sort of sitting here trying to just let all this go, notwithstanding.
Okay. Right. Okay, we'll take out the word proprietary. You don't have any basis to conclude that any Sargent information is being used by any of the former Sargent employees. Putting aside, forget about putting aside Mr. Wall's report. Actually, that's part of it.
I think that since Wall's report reflects some sort of confident information that he indicated in his report, which I don't know what the facts are, but the apparently solid idea was coupled and possibly from Sargent. With my report, there's nothing other than differences that there is information in the USB device. But the way you wrote it, that you, with these 6, 7, 8 employees are using it, I don't know that.
And similarly, you don't have any basis to conclude that MJ Electric is using any Sargent information, correct?
That's correct.
Redirect.
Thanks, John. Mr. Lano, you asked questions about why you made corrections to your report. Are you making corrections and clarifications to your report to make it more accurate?
That was one of the reasons. Clarification was to make it more accurate in response to the number of USB devices, but also in response to request by the program council for some exhibits, and that work was done.
And with respect to this issue of do we know where the missing devices are, your report identifies USB devices that were connected into these former Sargent employees' laptops, right?
Yes.
And what do we now know about 7 of the USB devices plugged into the Sargent laptops?
6 of the ones that I reported, plus the 7th one that was identified later, were also plugged into MJ's laptops.
So, by definition, are those missing any longer?
They're not missing, but we know where they went, at least not more than 2 months ago, as opposed to when one of these people departed.
And can any expert eliminate the possibility that at some point the rest of those 40 devices, when the appropriate project or bid comes up, will be plugged in at MJ Electric?
the
Can
question
any expert eliminate the possibility that when the right project comes up with respect to those remaining 40, that they will be plugged in at MJ Electric? Now, you know Mr. Weil, right?
that's correct.
And with respect to the forensic analysis, and I wanted to go back for a second to some of the work you did in Pennsylvania for the benefit of Pennsylvanians in those child pornography cases. In those cases, when you did your forensic analysis and then drew inferences about who was at a computer screen such that they could be charged with a crime, how did you do that?
By identifying the computer, the user running the computer, and who was present, or who was present there.
And you weren't here because you were asked to be separated, but this week, Mr. Voss testified, because I think we were looking at tab M. That's Mr. Voss's, and tab B. And if you want, maybe we can turn to tab B.
Sorry, where were you?
I'm sorry.
Attachment B.
It's Exhibit 101. I'm sorry.
Attachment B?
Yes. Attachment B is in boy. And there, if you were provided evidence that was direct evidence from Mr. Voss that said on the morning of February 10th, 2014, he was the only person in his office using a password to enter into his computer system, and that he recalls, among other things, he does recall a WD My Passport 0810 USB device. Could you draw an inference about who plugged in the USB device just 2 minutes before?
That's a question. I mean, this is like the craziest leading question. I mean,
He's an expert, and they're suggesting that this was raised on redirect, that somehow all kinds of people were in Mr. Voss's office using his laptop.
Is this a hypothetical? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
We asked him to draw. What inference can you draw based on his expertise about who would have been using that computer at that moment, other than Mr. Voss, under that set of facts?
Mr. Voss testified that he was using it at that time? Is that
Yes.
Okay.
That is what he testified.
All right. I'll vote.
With the information like that, with one person in an office, and you have the computer on, and the Windows system, with password authentication, Windows authentication, and something occurred on that device, then yes, that inference can be drawn.
And you also asked a question about printing. The question was, can you tell from an MRU list alone whether or not the document has actually been printed out? Do you recall that?
I do.
And you cannot know simply from an MRU list whether or not the document is printed out, right?
That's correct.
You need additional data, right?
Yes.
And is there additional data, though, if you review it in conjunction with an MRU list, which would allow you to determine whether or not hard copies were made by any user of a computer?
It's not even in conjunction with the MRU list. If you have the file and it's an office document, there is what is called of internal metadata, which would record the last file print date for that document.
You were asked at your deposition, I believe, about documents being printed out. Since your deposition, did you take a look at Mr. Frame's computer to see if there were documents printed out?
Objection. This is another undisclosed opinion, Your Honor. This is nowhere in the report. He did not have his opinions when I proposed him. I would ask the court to not allow him to testify about this.
Your Honor, you're right. That is not in the report. This is ongoing investigation that's been done that reflects printing that's occurred. So
we brought up printing.
he did bring up printing, and he knows the answer to that, which is absolutely relevant to this case.
I only brought up printing in the context of the MRU list, and what counsel is listing testimony about is an entirely different analysis that could have been, but was not conducted, has not been disclosed, has not been reported on, haven't had a chance to rebut it, analyze it, depose him about it. It really should not be allowed in, Your Honor.
He's trying to leave. What the defendants are trying to do, Your Honor, is leave the inference that because the MRU list in and of itself doesn't reflect copying, that no copying was going on. That's not true. Copying was going on, and this witness now knows it as a result of looking at metadata. And I have just two examples I want to show to
When was the metadata looked at?
When was the metadata looked at? Can I ask him that question?
Yes.
For the MRU list, it was after the deposition, so within 3 weeks.
But it's available, Your Honor. I mean, this is just...
Was it disclosed that he looked at it and it was...
No, have we said, do we have a second supplemental report? No, we do not.
Was it disclosed to them that he looked at the metadata?
No, I have not had that discussion with them, or sent them a letter, or updated the reports.
Can't get into it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll get into that later on in the trial. We'll talk about documents printed out of Mr. Leno. Now, and with respect to the Schumann USB device that we've been talking about at this afternoon's testimony. Do you recall that?
The Paul Schumann Seagate?
Right. And were you able to identify the fact that the Seagate hard drive, external hard drive, had been plugged in as a result of reviewing Mr. Wiles' report? Had been plugged in at MJ Electric?
Yes.
And I think Mr. Wiles' report is in the binders. Yeah, we'll find that real quick, Your Honor, and it's 69, Your Honor.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Lano, if you look at Exhibit 69, which is the Weil report from Deloitte, and you look at attachment A, is that the attachment you looked at to match up to see whether the Seagate hard drive about which Mr. Schuman testified at his deposition in this case on June 13th was in fact plugged in to the MJ electric system as discovered by MJ's own expert?
Yes.
Can you slowly, because granted, even for me, I'm having a hard time reading this. It's a little bit, the print's small. But how do you find Schuman and the Seagate that was plugged into the MJ computer system?
The second tab description, the 15th item.
So, under description, okay, 15 down.
15 down, Seagate portable USB device. Next to it is the serial number, the 2EH-ONPM. And the follow-on area, it shows that it was plugged into a power Schuman MJ laptop, March 3rd of 2014 for the first time, and the last time, April 23rd of 2014.
Those are my questions, Ryan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down. Is this witness excused?
As far as I'm concerned, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, so you're excused. All right, I guess that's it for a day. Monday morning? Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor?
Yes.
Is it fair to assume that the court has available Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday for us to...
I cleared it all.
We appreciate that, Judge.
Okay?
Move as quickly as possible.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, absolutely.